Well, hello guys, and welcome back to another Rick and Morty review. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at Season 3, Episode 8, Morty's Mind Blowers. Normally, when I do short reviews, they tend to be because I'm going a little crazy, because I've been doing the same review over and over again, and I gotta change up the pace. Examples are the Whirly Darly Conspiracy, Look Who's Purging Now, and a bunch of Steven Universe reviews that haven't come out yet. Usually in these reviews, I go through the episode, but for the interdimensional cable reviews, I try to skip over a lot of the anthology part and focus on like the B story or something else. But this one doesn't have a B story. So a lot of this episode I'm leaving out. So just go check it out, right? Because I'm going to be skipping over a lot of this episode. With that pointless rant out of the way, let's get into it. So it starts off, they're going through like an MC Escher place, fighting a Babadook, Tim Burton monster, and to get this truth tortoise, which reveals the truth when you look into its eyes. So Morty because Morty looks into its eyes, he begins to know everything. He destroys the place and the truth tortoise, and he wants the memory removed. So even though they're about to start up interdimensional cable, they go down to the basement, underground secret cellar, and there's all these memories of all these different adventures, right? And they even say, oh, we've done this before, right? This isn't the first time we've done something like this. And there's an important memory I want to point out in this image you're seeing right now on screen. You'll see a little red vial that says virginity. That's pretty funny, and I'll get into it here in a minute, why it's especially funny. And I didn't notice it my first time. Somebody pointed it out to me. But they do this whole anthology tale where every time he has this helmet, and when they plug in something, it sends them into a memory, right? And Rick establishes early on that this isn't the first time they've done this, which is important for something later on. But we get this first story about this guy on the moon, and it's interesting because he's looking at it like a smudge, but the smudge moves. How do you explain that, right? It doesn't... They're clearly going for like a Mr. Poopy Butthole thing, right? Where it's like, oh, you think it's building up towards one thing, but nope, psych, it's doing it the other way. But unlike Mr. Poopy Butthole, which already did this, they kind of already blew their chute on that one, so this one doesn't work. So yeah, and then there's a bunch of other memories I'm skipping over. Eventually, they establish that, yeah, this is basically like a clip show and that these memories have been edited, and this isn't like The Simpsons, right? Because I know I compared last week's episode to the 22 short stories from Springfield, and this one they directly compared to like the Treehouse of Horrors, which, yeah, no, that's a pretty apt comparison. I mean, I know after last week's episode, I know people kind of expect great things, right? Because last week's episode did great things. It progressed the farther plot. This one doesn't really do that, which is kind of the point of an anthology tale. So I'm willing to cut it a lot of slack, right? But Morty eventually realizes that each memory signifies a different thing, right? Blue memories are something he wanted erased, purple memories involve his family, and red memories are something Rick erased because he didn't want Morty to know. And I actually think these red memories do a good job at developing Rick as a character, because it's like little things, like he pronounces you taken for granted as granite, right? It's a little thing, but it's a good character development thing. And there's a lot of little ones, especially with Rick. There's one later on with Checkers that's a great example of this, right? But eventually Rick and Morty get into a fight, and they erase each other's memories. So Morty's trying to figure out what's going on, Rick's confused, and there's this really weird scene with like the storage locker. I understand you're supposed to be confused, but why? I didn't get this one. And I do want to point out that a lot of these are really funny. A lot of the ones I'm skipping over. And I wouldn't say it's funnier than the first interdimensional cable, but it's definitely funnier than interdimensional cable 2. Also, these aren't improv. Like the original Interdimensional Cable and Interdimensional Cable 2 gave off this vibe that yes, these are improv. We threw everything at the wall and just used the few best ones. This one has been clearly planned out, right? So it's a different take on the same idea as the first two. We get this one where this magnet and Morty uses it to attract redheads. The reason I wanted to point out this one, because I like the callback, because remember in autoerotic assimilation, how Rick's like, oh, I want a field full of redheads. And then this is a callback, right? Like father, like, or like grandson, like son, right? That's a nice little bit of continuity, if you want to call it that. We get, Morty can talk to animals, but he accidentally pisses off the squirrels, because the squirrels, I'm assuming this is a take on, the mice from, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and how they're taking over the world. So yeah, that's funny. And it is interesting, because so C-137 is no longer, because they're from C-137, but they're not in Dimension C-137, and now we also know that they're not in that dimension anymore, because this happened after Rick Potion number 9. So I'm curious if in an episode after this, the graves will still be there, or, right, would that work? That'll be interesting to see. But okay, so back in the whole memory present, Morty decides he's going to remember everything, and we got a bunch of quick flashes. The best ones are about Rick and what Rick wanted removed. And then they decide, after Morty's remembered everything, he's like, oh, our life is hell, and decides he's going to suicide pact with Rick. And then Summer walks in. Because again, as they established early on, they remember everything, right? So this has been done before. So this is a code 4, which is basically they erase their own memories. And yeah, okay, right? And it sets up Interdimensional Cable 3, kind of, because she puts them on the couch thinking they forgot it. Because she didn't follow the last step of, after waking them up, leave the room, right? She missed the most important one. Because all they do is berate her. And they make a joke about, I think it's supposed to be a joke about how it takes forever to make the show, but I'm not entirely sure. And then our end credit scene is Jerry's mind blowers about how they did the whole setup to E.T. but then screwed it up because Jerry's a fucking idiot. And that's where the episode ends. It's a fine episode, right? It's nothing outstanding like the last two, but it's still really good. And for an anthology tale, it's fine. It's better. It's not as good as the first Interdimensional Cable, but it's definitely better than Interdimensional Cable 2. But with all this being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.